about your lifelong struggle with hair.
Oh, God. I don't want Republicans to win. I believe the Republican Party, especially now under the leadership of Donald Trump, is a fascist, post-liberal party. And I'll fight tooth and nail. But the reality of the matter is the Democrats are not on board with it. How influential is your voice in the Democratic Party? As influential as this voice. Okay, that's how influential my voice is.
In your new book, Young Man in a Hurry, you're really explicit in trying to confront the perception that you are, and I'm quoting here, a privileged prince. Because your grandfather and your father, they had a lot of activity in politics and business in San Francisco. They were especially close to the Getty family, as are you. You describe in detail the split personality, that's what you call it, of your childhood, because your parents divorced when you were young and you had that privileged existence with your dad, and then you went back home with your mom, who had to work 3 jobs to keep things afloat.
Yeah, 19 when she was pregnant with me. She had 2 kids, a father, which I discovered only through the process of researching his life and writing this book, had a breakdown. Ran for county supervisor in San Francisco, lost, ran for state senate, lost both races, was broke, and said he had a breakdown that required him just to leave. And he just took off to Lake Tahoe, Truckee area. And that was it. We saw him episodically when we were growing up. He was there every 3 or 4 weekends, maybe a week or so every summer, and came back into our lives much later. But it was my mom, hard work, grit, never complained, explained, came from no wealth, single, bedroom, and she just made ends meet, made things work, and gave me the grit and gave me a work ethic that's frankly allowed me to survive in politics this many years.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about that grit. You talk about your mom giving you that grit and your dad teaching you other things like the love of the outdoors and poetry. But it really is striking to me how distant you describe, and you're really detailed and pretty raw about how distant you felt from both of your parents, and especially your mom. You call her.
Oh, God. I mean, is this... why does it feel inauthentic? Because it's Gavin Newsom. He's the most, manicured candidate out there. He literally looks the part. He looks like he would be president in a straight-to-DVD release movie. Just wait, it gets worse. Oh, God.
To you.
Yeah, look, I mean, the title has meaning, Young Man in a Hurry. I've been in a hurry. I've been always trying to chase something. I put a mask on, and my face was growing into it. I was becoming, I wasn't becoming myself. It was the biggest fear my mom had of me getting into politics. She never wanted me to go into politics, which I never understood until I learned in the process of writing this. That was the reason for their divorce. She never explained that. They never talked about that when I grew up. I lost my mom almost 20 years ago to breast cancer. And I was hustling back then. I was a small business person. I had opened a number of small businesses, restaurants and hotel, a small little winery. I was a county supervisor. I was thinking about running for mayor. She was getting sick and sicker, and I was distant.
Yeah, we've upgraded the messaging from my mother was a small business under Kamala Harris to I was a small business.
Part of my plan is what we need to do to support small businesses, because my second mother was a small business owner, and I love our small businesses and our small business owners.
And she called, she left a voicemail. It's in the book.
I am a small business.
How about getting this voicemail? Literally, hi, it's your mom. Next week, I'll be taking my own life. If you want to visit me, I would encourage you to do so before next Thursday. That was literally, I still have the voicemail, I kept it. And it was a big wake-up call. And I realized how selfish and self-absorbed I was.
Bro, if you're Gavin Newsom, you probably shouldn't reveal that information because it only confirms people's priors about how, sociopathic you sound and look. It's crazy. Oh, my God. I mean, look, now we're just on the vibes aspect. We've moved way past the policy side of things. We're just looking into his background and the way he's communicating, the way he presents himself. I'll be honest with you. Maybe I'm too harsh on Gavin, Big Gavy Gav, but I don't think people are going to look at this and be like, well, this guy's a sincere guy. It just kind of makes him look like Patrick Bateman.
And I started spending time with her, but it was too late. She already made the decision The cancer had metastasized. She was in so much pain. And I had the privilege and the burden, the worst experience, and in hindsight, the most blessed experience I've ever had, and that was being there for her when she took her last breath. My sister and I there at her assisted suicide with a brave doctor. It was against the law, and it was a brave doctor who was willing to help her and take her out of her misery, and was there for that last moment.
Oh my God. Again, how does this read to a self-declared apolitical voter in Missouri, Kentucky, Pennsylvania? Like, I don't want to be ruthless here. Once again, I'm trying to read this as charitably as possible, but like this is a really devastating experience. Pretty raw though. No, I think those voters like that. No, this is supposed to be like a very emotional moment, but the way he's talking about it is so one note, if that makes sense. It comes across like it's robotic, and I don't think this is I don't know if this would actually read positively to many people.
And you were 34, she was 55, and you wrote that there was no peace that blanketed her. She gasped and took a last breath. I kept holding onto her hand tighter and tighter and sobbing. Yeah,
I was there. She had anybody's been in this position with someone who's suffering and struggling. So we came there, and she took some pills, and she started.
I agree with you generally on Gavin Newsom, but I do not think that take is correct. This really humanized for me. Interesting. I think Joe Biden did a better job talking about his son's drug addiction issues.
He made a fortune. My son. And he didn't have a job. My son, like a lot of people we know at home, had a drug problem. He's overtaken it. He's fixed it. He's worked on it. And I'm proud of him. But why was he given tens of millions of dollars? But he wasn't given tens of millions of dollars.
I think Joe Biden did a better job talking about his son's drug addiction issues than Gavin Newsom is doing here, talking about his mother taking her own life, doing voluntary active euthanasia to, finally get rid of the pain of having like metastasized cancer and dealing with all of that.
Started to doze off a little bit, and she had an old binder of photographs, and she was talking. My sister and I were the two that were with her, both sides. And then she started.
Your weirdest take yet? Really? I think you guys are relating back to your own experiences, maybe. But I feel like yes, in my opinion, it's weird to judge people's sorrow this way. Okay, well, you're running for president. This is the book that you're coming out with. You can turn around and tell me that this is an inappropriate assessment. But from where I'm standing, I'm looking at it from the perspective of like an average person who doesn't have like super kind opinions about Gavin Newsom to begin with. Not my own assessment. I mean, even though my own assessment here is not super positive. Like, I think there is a way to talk about this issue, and I don't know if he's doing the best job of emoting.
Started dozing off a little more. My sister said, I can't do this anymore. She didn't want to be there for the end, and she took off. And about 10 more minutes of that, it was just my mom and I. And the doctor came in and administered the final dose, and those last breaths, I'll never forget it. And I was angry that I was there. I was angry with her. At the time, I was for years and years.
Why?
Why would you do this? Why would you? There was nothing calming about it. It was not a romantic end. She struggled, and she had struggled her whole life. And I'm realizing, and now I realize it, how selfish and self-absorbed, as I suggested I was, that I never had a chance to thank her. Never.
You think Republicans would care if somebody's like a psycho? Yes. If their opposition is, yes. Hello? Have you never met a Republican? If Gavin Newsom was a Republican and he was saying this, they'd be like, what the f*** are you talking about, libtard? He was being empathetic. But yeah, for their opposition, they do. What are you talking about? Hello? I mean, look at the Republicans, the way they talk about Kirsti Noem. They don't give a shit that she like literally took a puppy and one-tapped it. They love that shit. They don't care if it's their side. We're talking about like how they're going to attack, and then what that looks like for people in the middle. Will they be swayed from Gavin Newsom's message, or will they be swayed by the attack ads against them?
Really had a chance to say, I love you. Thank you for all your sacrifices.
Yeah, this is not my personal assessment about assisted suicide. For the record, I'm in favor of that. What the f is wrong with you? If you think that I'm saying like this is my personal opinion, my only personal opinion here is I feel like the way that Gavin Newsom, everyone goes through pain differently, everyone grieves differently. I'm simply stating that Gavin Newsom's grievance process here is probably not going to read positively to a lot of people who already have feelings about assisted suicide. I'm pro. Why would you think that I'm against it? I don't think we should force people to live through that pain. I'm just saying there's something off about the way he's talking about it.
Over the years and through the process, I'm telling you, what a gift to be able to write something. I started realizing, that last breath, I'm still, that's extended through me today. That hand I'm holding is her hand. And she's, I'm an expression of her. She's still alive in me.
You're obviously trying to explore your own life and your family's history in this, but also put out to the world what you say is the full you and not perhaps what people see. They see a slick politician who knows how to talk and, has been climbing and a man in a hurry for a long time.
This book is not about victimhood. Quite the contrary. It's about agency. It's about resilience. It's about, it's about the journey that we're on. It's a human story that I think a lot of people can connect to with divorced families, kids that are struggling, the good and bad in life, the serendipity of life, marriage, divorce. I mean, all of that.
Well, on that, I was going to ask you about that because you do.
They're going to say he's like a entitled rich kid who has been obsessed with his own personal career and his own image his entire life, so much so that he is using this incredibly traumatic moment and the pain and struggle that his mother went through to write a book that tries to humanize him, and they're just going to rip him apart. They'll say he's a sociopath. There is a lane for a sociopath, for the record. He just has to be a fighter. You know what I mean? Because even if he was like, I'm a sociopath, but I'm your sociopath and I'm fighting for you, if he was able to channel that energy that people want from him, he could move on from looking like Erica Kirk to looking like a real fighter. Because Trump is a sociopath. It's obvious. Trump doesn't care about anybody but himself. Trump is a narcissistic sociopath and a monster and self-invested, self-interested. How has he been able to get people to feel this cult-like zealotry towards him maintaining power, retaining power? By saying, I'm destroying the enemies. I'm destroying your enemies, sometimes even propping up enemies to destroy, right? Your enemies are migrants. Your enemies are trans people. I will kill them. I will destroy them. First, you build an enemy for the base to lean into, to feel like they have anger and hatred towards. You take from previously successful initiatives, the anti-immigration sentiment, white supremacist sentiment, the white nativist anti-immigrant agenda. And then you present yourself as the guy who's going to destroy it, like the elite liberals who only care about your enemies and not you. That creates a decipherable policy agenda for a lot of people as well. For Gavin Newsom, that second part is not there aside from just hating Donald Trump.
Talk in great detail about issues that not that long ago were taboo. And things that are not really highlights of your personal life. You talk about the affair that you had with one of your staffers, his wife. You talk about the failure of your first marriage to Kimberly Guilfoyle, who was later engaged, of course, to Donald Trump Jr. You even talk about your hair.
Yeah.
And about your lifelong struggle with hair.
Oh, God. All right, whatever. Let's continue.
And so, last question. What are the metrics that will determine whether you run for president?
There's 5 of them. Dutch, Brooklyn, Hunter. You get the drift.
Want me to help you name the rest of your kids?
But the biggest one is Jennifer. So,
exactly.
It's going to, look, this book was dedicated to them. I wish this was a book my parents wrote.
Do they want you to run?
And it's going to be, I don't know. It depends on the day. And my son, Romy, it was very powerful, texted me a few months ago when there was some headline that suggested that I had made some decision. And he goes, Dad, are you running president? I said, no, we'll do the decision as a family. He goes, you can't. And I said, why? He goes, I'm too young. You need to spend more time with us. I mean, how do you deal with that one? I screenshot it. If I have my phone, I'd show you.
How do you deal with that one?
Exactly. I'm asking you. Come on.
I'm not running for president.
No,
It's not
that's the point, and the point is the point. And so what matters is what matters. Like what matters is what matters. And that's
and then going back
hard.
to the book, your mother didn't want you to even get this far in politics.
And I think, that text, that's why I talk about fate. But it will be done as a family, and it'll be done as a unit, and it'll be done in a partnership with these magnificent creatures. I'm just so blessed. 2 boys, 2 girls. And people say their kids are perfect. Mine are not.
I know that no matter what I say about Gavin Newsom, it'll be read as like Hasan just hates Gavin Newsom, so he's just going to be anti-Gavin Newsom no matter what. But I just don't think that this reads as like a real human, you know? It just doesn't. It doesn't read as like a real human being. I don't know. I just don't see this as like even remotely garnering the empathetic vision that he is trying to present himself as.
They're perfectly imperfect because they're all composites.
It almost feels like he just read Trump and was like, I will just become the liberal Trump. And what we need right now is a left Trump. Okay, not a liberal Trump, but a leftist Trump. Because the key component that caused people to feel like Donald Trump was their dear leader is not that he is a billionaire sociopath who hates his kids, who doesn't care about anybody but himself. It's that he was going to break the system. And a lot of people refuse to recognize that. A lot of people think, no. What a lot of people want is stability. They want to go back to business as usual. They want to go back to brunch. Now that Joe Biden is the president, we're going to brunch again, baby. Well, guess what? We went back to brunch from 2020 to 2024. And the people were like, oh, no, we don't want brunch. We want breaking. We want a hammer. I don't care if someone is like coming across as sociopathic. But in order to develop a base of support that will ride for you, you cannot rely on the establishment Democrat K-hivers and the consultant class that has attached themselves as a vestige of the party that's constantly, like the bloodsuckers they are, feeding back information to the party that keeps telling them, no, you're doing the great thing. Keep doing moderate. Keep pivoting to the moderate center. You'll win the corporate structure back to your side. You'll win the titans of industry back because they will also recognize the corporate benefactors, the real constituents that anybody cares about in this duopoly will remember that stability yields prosperity, and they will go for you and they will ride for you again. And then ultimately, the voters will fall whichever way they fall, but you'll win a marginal victory without really hurting the feelings of big corporations. It's a desperate gamble that doesn't see the frustrations that the average person has. It actually hemorrhages the party's base of support, because the party's base and the apolitical masses are just pissed off with business as usual politics, and the low propensity voters every now and then swing in the direction of an anti-establishment candidate that's a populist candidate. On the right, I call it sloppulist. You cannot rely on people's anger and resentment towards Donald Trump's instability to garner enough votes that you secure a marginal victory over Trump. You have to present a bold vision, a radical agenda. You have to communicate to the voters that you will pursue this agenda, that you're on their side, that you are their fighter, sociopath or not. This is the Heather Cox Richardson view of history and politics. Everything was perfect before him. And if we just get rid of Donald Trump, we can all go back to brunch. In Newsom's case, that means dining with billionaires he won't tax. This has been my frustration since 2016. You can't say Bernie was right and not recognize that was bad before Trump. That's why it led to Trump. And then this is precisely what I talked about in the 2024 cycle over and over again. Oh, you think we're going to have a rebound here. You think that people are desperate for status quo politics. The reason why Trump won in 2016 was because the voters said, we want something different. In 2028, this is reductive vision here, but in 2028, if there is an election at all, the party that captures that essence, the anti-establishment essence, the populist essence, will win again. Liberals get very frustrated with this assessment because they go, oh, you're so stupid. You're demanding stupidity. You don't want adults to win power and legislate. Politics is the art of possible, and that legislation and being a real legislator and doing good governance requires telling people hard truths like good things are not possible. That's not the case. The side that will say, no, we have a bold vision here and we're going to break the system down. The system is not benefiting you. We recognize your anger and we're going to channel your frustration or reappropriate your frustration to an easier target to take down, like immigrants or trans people or whatever will end up winning. And the Democratic Party or the left, the broad left anti-fascist movement here shouldn't be to say, no, we're going to go back to business as usual. Politics wasn't, things were incredible in 2016. Am I right? 2014. Remember how great things were in the 2010s? That's not going to cut it, because if things were so great in the 2010s, people wouldn't have voted for Donald Trump.
That's the one thing about Trump you have to watch. He throws out these things to see how far he can go. And that's why it's so important. You don't just roll your eyes and say, well, that's Trump being Trump. You will lose this country if we continue with that. You have got to call it out. We have got to push back. And I think, again, this notion that we're capable of doing much more speed, his is shock and awe. He wants to flood the zone, but we are capable of doing much more. And I absolutely do believe the next president, particularly if it's a Democrat, has to prove that as well.
They were more anti-Hillary than anything? No, you're missing the point. You're missing the point. Every single person that voted against Hillary Clinton didn't arrive at that position because of the conspiracy theories and because of the hatred that they felt towards the Clinton dynasty in general. Although there were a lot of people who felt that way. But the broadest majorities that were anti-Clinton because Hillary Clinton represented status quo politics. You like the system currently? Vote for me. You don't like the system currently? Vote for the other guy. And a ton of people did not like the system currently as it stood. And it's clear that that resentment didn't go away after 4 years of business as usual politics when Joe Biden won. Things got bad enough, especially due to COVID as well, that Joe Biden ended up winning. But clearly, once Joe Biden won and we went back to status quo politics, marginal improvements that were too little, too late, a day late, a dollar short, people were like, okay, I'm still not happy. I'm not comfortable. I'm not happy at all. I want someone to break this again. I want a hammer. I want a hatchet. And Trump represented himself as that hatchet, regardless of the fact that he was already president for 4 years. And he took advantage of people not remembering that he was president for 4 years. That's why he won with low propensity voters, something that I talked about quite a bit. No, it's not Jill Stein at all, because especially in 2024, you can't say that. You want to know why? Because if all third-party voters voted for Kamala Harris, she still would have lost. So that's not even like mathematically a possibility. You can't even point the finger of blame. In 2016, you could, at Bernie Sanders, at third-party voters and whatever, even though that's still the wrong theory, because the party is not entitled to the voters. The party must earn the votes. The notion that the Democratic Party is entitled to the voters and the voters failed the party rather than the party failing the voters is already the fundamentally wrong position to have. It is against the fundamental principle of theoretical democracy. The idea that, like, of course you're going to vote for me. I'm the only other option. People don't work like that. It's crazy because this was a major problem. This has been a major problem in virtually every single election since 2016. Kamala Harris did not lose votes to third-party voters. Kamala Harris lost votes to the couch. Kamala Harris lost votes to voter apathy. And the faster we recognize that that is entirely in the hands of the party itself and not the voters, the faster we can get out of this bind.